There is a specific kind of silence that doesn't signal a breakdown, but a breakthrough. You've seen them, the polymaths, the deep thinkers, the ones who seemed to have it all until one day they simply vanished. They stopped answering the texts. They retreated into the shadows of their own lives. Most people call this ghosting. They call it avoidance. But in the libraries of the mind, it has a much older, much more calculated name. History is littered with these intellectual exiles, those who realized that the crowd wasn't just noisy, it was a parasite. Today, we peel back the velvet curtain on why high-value minds eventually choose the dead room over the ballroom. But pay close attention, because point number 6, the final realization, is the most dangerous of all. It is the only reason that makes the rest of this isolation work, and if you haven't reached it yet, you are still living in someone else's script. But before we reach that final threshold, we must ask, why does the mind begin to find the presence of others physically heavy? Chapter 1. The Alchemy of Absence. Imagine your social circle as a collection of rare books. At first, you want a library that stretches to the ceiling, but eventually, you notice the dust. Psychologically, high-value individuals operate on the principle of social entropy. They realize that every casual connection, every meaningless small-talk session is a leak in their cognitive battery. To the high-value mind, ghosting isn't an act of malice. It is a strategic withdrawal of resources. It is the sculptor chipping away the excess marble to find the statue hidden within. They aren't running away from you. They are running toward the only version of themselves that hasn't been diluted by the opinions of the average. But this leads to a chilling realization. If the average is what they are avoiding, what does that say about the people they left behind? Chapter 2. The Dunbar Trap and the Intellectual Ceiling. Robin Dunbar famously suggested we can only maintain 150 stable relationships. But for the high-value mind, that number is a cage. When your internal world becomes more complex, filled with philosophy, high-stakes goals, or deep aesthetic pursuits, the bandwidth required to maintain basic social norms becomes exhausting. They begin to see the Dunbar trap. They see that most people aren't looking for a connection. They are looking for a mirror. They want you to reflect their own mediocrity back at them so they feel safe. When a high-value mind stops reflecting that image, the friction becomes unbearable. They don't want to argue. They don't want to explain. They simply choose the great exit. But is this exit a sign of strength, or is it a symptom of a much darker, more ancient psychological mechanism? Chapter 3. The Parasitic Social Loop. In biology, a parasite doesn't always kill its host. It just drains it enough to keep it from thriving. High-value minds identify parasitic social loops. These are the friendships based on old versions of you. The version that used to drink, the version that used to complain, the version that didn't have a vision. To stay in touch with those people is to keep the wound open. Cutting everyone off is the psychological equivalent of a controlled burn in a forest. They set fire to their social landscape to ensure that only the strongest trees survive the winter. However, once the fire is out and the forest is black, who is left to witness the rebirth? Chapter 4. The Ego Death of the Ghost. There is a profound terror in being forgotten. For most, it is the ultimate failure. But for the high-value mind, it is the ultimate freedom. By ghosting the world, they commit social ego death. They kill the brand of themselves. They stop being the smart one, the reliable one, or the successful one in your eyes. In that anonymity, they find their true power. They realize that as long as they are connected, they are controlled. Every notification is a leash. Every "how are you" is a demand for a performance. But this brings us to the edge of the abyss. Is there a difference between a genius in solitude and a person simply afraid to be seen? Chapter 5. Avoidant versus Ascendant. We must make a distinction. There is the avoidant ghost who hides because they are broken. And then there is the Ascendant ghost who hides because they are building. The avoidant is driven by fear. The Ascendant is driven by priority. One is a retreat, the other is a siege. High-value minds don't cut people off because they hate them. They do it because they have finally fallen in love with their own potential, and that love is a jealous God. It demands every hour. It demands every ounce of focus. It demands that you stop caring about the birthday parties of people who don't know the titles of the books on your nightstand. This brings us finally to that point number 6 I mentioned at the start. The dangerous realization that ensures they never come back. Chapter 6. The final filter. The verdict. Point number 6 is the realization that you were never ghosting them. You were ghosting the version of yourself that lived in their eyes. The high-value mind realizes that as long as they stay in the same circles, they are trapped in a consistent identity. People expect you to be who you were yesterday. To truly evolve, you must become a stranger to everyone who knew you. They don't come back because the you they knew is dead. They have reached the final filter, where they realize that the only person worth checking in with is the one they see in the mirror at 3 a.m. If you find yourself craving the silence, don't fear it. It isn't a sign that you are losing the world. It's a sign that you are finally finding yourself. The question is, are you brave enough to let the bridge burn? Tell me in the comments, have you ever reached that threshold where the crowd felt more like a cage than a community? I read every one. If this deconstruction of the Great Exit rewired your perspective, consider subscribing. Let's find our own dead rooms together. Thank you for watching.